And we are back here on Metal Nation Radio. I am Rustin Rose of Metalholic Magazine. You just heard Metal Warrior, the new track off Unleash the Fire from our brothers in Riot. They are back, and tonight with us, Mike Flyntz of Riot. How are you doing, brother?
I'm doing great, Rustin.
Now,
glad to talk to you.
Absolutely. So do we officially have to call the band other than Riot now?
We're going to call it Riot 5 from now on. Yep, as requested by Mark's father, Mr. Tony Reale.
Okay, so I knew there had to be a story behind it, and all the ones that have been floating around are sort of in contradiction to each other, so I figured it probably had to have something to do with some out of respect for Mark and his family. I think that's a fine idea. So first off, there's so much to talk about, but I have to thank you. You know, I know it was a hard decision, but thanks for keeping the band going.
You're welcome.
You know, it's great to have you guys continuing to keep the old stuff alive and keep Mark's memory alive, but also creating new music, which I'm sure he would have wanted.
I know, yeah. I knew Mark for a long time, and I knew he wouldn't want us to stop. And really the main decision was made after Mr. Reale, you know, who I spend a lot of time with now. He asked me to continue. He says, Mike, I want you to continue. Mark would want you to continue. I don't want Mark's music and legacy to die out. And, he's an 86-year-old man. You know, at the time he told me a year or two ago, he just says, if you go out there and play and perform his music will never die. So I said, okay. I couldn't say no to Mr. Reale. So
Mark started the band nearly 40 years ago. You've been in the band for like 25 years now. Does it seem a bit surreal for you?
My head is spinning. I don't know what's happening. Yeah, it's just with the passing of a good friend, and now we're back without him, and we didn't really replace him. I got my student to play guitar, and it's the only way I could have done it. Somebody who I've known and played with for maybe 15 years. In Nick Lee, the other guitar player. So that's the only person I could add on stage. Somebody who's part of my family. And it's very surreal, yes. Right.
And you just mentioned Nick Lee, former guitar student of yours, is your battery mate now on guitar. And, of course, Don Van Stavern, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, and Frank Gilcrease, both back in the band, which is phenomenal. But we have a new vocalist. Tell us a little bit about Todd.
Todd Michael Hall. My God. How about that voice?
Yeah.
People ask me, how'd you come up with this singer? How'd you find him? I just say I think it was meant to be. Riot has had a lot of bad breaks, as anybody who's followed our career knows. And this is one of the good breaks. We came across Todd. Donnie actually immediately started writing songs when Mark passed away. That's the way he, everybody deals with loss in a different way. Donnie Van Stavern went right to the music. Started writing songs for Mark. He wrote Immortal. Before you know it, he had 7-8 songs, and he started auditioning singers. This is without me doing anything. I was like a zombie for the first year. I didn't play any Riot music. I didn't think about it. Donnie chose, to throw all his emotions into his music, and thank God he did. And then he started getting tapes from singers, and he put the word out in Europe. And Todd Michael Hall found out that we were looking for a singer. He's an old Riot fan. His brother gave him the Thundersteel record when he was a kid, and Donnie sent them some songs, and actually he sent them songs up Immortal Soul, our last record. He sent them the song Riot, and he says the song Still Your Man. Todd put him in this, put himself in the studio at home and recorded, and he sent it back. And when I heard it, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. And Donnie actually, for fun, he put Still Your Man on. He put it up on Facebook, and people were writing in, why are you putting in this song? It's been out for a while already. They didn't even know it was Todd singing on it.
Wow. So yeah, he did a phenomenal job on the album and a fantastic addition to the band. And I was going to say, Mark was always a main songwriting force in the band. And I was wondering sort of how you guys approached the album. Obviously, Don did a vast majority of it, which is interesting, though, because he's the bass player, and this is really very much a guitar-driven record. You and Nick, some phenomenal work on there. A lot of it reminded me of that classic, like almost Iron Maiden, Nawabum feel on some of the songs, but just those duels and everything were fantastic. So I'm assuming you guys had to be part of this process of putting these songs together.
Yeah, basically Don Donnie came right out of the gate, as I said before, and he came up with 8 songs. All those 8 songs are on the record now. After going through different singers, and we decided on Todd, then Todd sang on them. And once I heard them, that gave me, I jumped out of my slump, and I just started writing, and I came up with the rest of the 4 songs for the record. I just, after hearing that, and the different styles too, because Don had Immortal on there. He had a couple, banging the head songs, and but a couple of mellow songs like Return of the Outlaw. And I said, wow, we should really just do a tribute to Mark's and Riot's whole entire career. Let's write songs that could be on The Reader, that could be on Fire Down Under, Thundersteel, the whole era, Red Forester period. So my first song I wrote was Take Me Back, and I just imagined that I was in the band during Fire Down Under. I wrote a rock shuffle. Mark loved shuffles,
right?
Like a kind of UFO meets Riot sound, and that's what I had in mind for Take Me Back. I just let it flow, and I wrote a bunch of songs, but we chose my best 4, and Donnie came up with the rest of the 8, and I have 4 songs. So
nice.
That's the breakdown.
Well, first off, I have to imagine just recording a new album without Mark had to be emotionally difficult, but I would also think that at the same time it had to be somewhat cathartic for you.
Yeah, Mark's name never not came up. He had a very funny sense of humor, and he had a lot of quotes. So every day we were just the Mark Reale quotes. His name. How would Mark do this? What would Reale do now? Oh, I can't figure out what to do. Mark would do this. And his spirit was there the entire time, and we never stopped thinking about him. And Nick, who met Mark a few times, got to learn a lot about Mark, and because we just his spirit, he was with us the whole time, and a lot of people involved. Obviously, Don worked with Mark forever. People don't realize that Don Van Staven actually was with Mark back in 1984, way before Thundersteel.
Right.
He actually did some gigs with Red Forester, and so Donnie has been writing with Mark forever, and I've been with him for 23 years. So he was there, kind of. He was definitely there in spirit, and we had a lot of laughs and a lot of tears, and that's why we dedicate obviously we dedicate the album to Mark and his time with Riot. So.
Absolutely. So, why don't we take a quick break? We'll listen to a track off the previous album, Mark's last album with the band. We'll play Still Your Man, and we'll be back here on Metal Nation Radio on the flip side with more from Mike Flyntz of Riot talking about the new album, Unleash the Fire.
Yes, sir. Beautiful.
And we are back here on Metal Nation Radio. That was, of course, Riot, Still Your Man from the Immortal Soul album, Mark's last album with the band. And Mike, that was such a fantastic album. But this one, I got to tell you, and first off, thank you for sticking around. But I got to tell you, I got to admit it, I was a little bit skeptical going in. What's this going to sound like, But Unleash the Fire is a fantastic album, and you hit on it. You guys did sort of manage to grab bits and pieces from all the different eras of the band, and it's got the classic elements, but there's these fresh nuances, obviously. So tell us about the album as a whole from your perspective.
When I first heard Donnie's initial songs, I was blown away with the first song I heard that he wrote was, a song. We have a little saga that's been going on since Thundersteel with Johnny's Back. Then they followed that up with in the theme was a song called Black Leather and Glittering Steel, where they mentioned Johnny and that song. So the Immortal Soul, Donnie wrote Still Your Man, what you just played.
Right.
And when I heard the music, I said, oh, this has to be in the saga. So me and Tony got together, and I said, listen, let's think about the song Johnny's Back and Black Leather and Glittering Steel, and let's write a continuation of it. And Still Your Man, you can hear a lot of Johnny references. And Metal Warrior was the next song, and you can hear Todd's, making references also. So I heard that, and I just said, man, I really think we can do this. Then I heard Return of the Outlaw from Donnie, and I said, wow, this is something that we can probably write songs to span the whole Riot career. And we took it from there.
Yeah, and you guys really did sort of hit on that, which is really exciting, and also, just a monument to what Mark had created and to what you guys have been doing for 20 plus years. The other three of you that have been in the band for a long time. So now, one of my favorite tracks on the album is a song about sort of pushing a passive man to his breaking point, Bring the Hammer Down. Tell us about that track.
Oh, that's a great Donnie Van Staveren song. Yeah, Donnie wrote that, the guitar parts and everything on that. What can I say? Other than just learn the parts and record it, I have to give full credit to Don. Him and Todd came up, Todd wrote some of the lyrics and Donnie did too. Just a crushing, great heavy metal song. I heard the riff in that, and I said, oh God, I can't wait to play this live. And we haven't had a chance to yet, but recording was a lot of fun. Nick Lee does a great solo in that. We go back and forth a little bit on that song, but that's all Donnie.
Are there one or two tracks on the album that resonate with you personally, maybe a bit more than the others?
They all have a little different meaning. As far as Don's songs, Metal Warrior to me is just, he hit it on the head with that. I just love, the guitar riffs, the vocal harmonies, the melody. So, I like the solos that me and Nick wrote. The guitar solos are cool, and there's a great metal breakdown in that song when we go to halftime. But I could say I'm in love with all 12 songs. I spent so much time with them, right, and I like them all equally. Obviously, to me, the song I wrote for Mark, Until We Meet Again, that's the song that resonates most with me for obvious reasons.
Right.
Yeah, that's me just, I wrote a song for him. I wrote the lyrics, and I think they were a little bit clumsy for Todd to sing, so Todd did come in and change the lyrics. He added a couple of lines, but he kept the basic idea I was trying to say. And musically, I also wrote it for Mark. There's a couple of musical references in there. The song starts out with a church-like triple guitar part, and then it breaks into a slow bluesy melodic lead, reminiscent of like a Gary Moore.
Right.
Gary Moore is one of the guitar players that me and Mark would listen to constantly. All the tours we did, we would sit next to each other on the plane, with our headphones into the same, iPod, and we would always listen to all the Gary Moore periods, early stuff. Still got the blues stuff, and we would listen to a lot of Beatles, a lot of Thin Lizzy. So when I wrote that song, I kind of incorporated like a Gary Moore-like melody in the beginning. During the verse, me and Nick don't play chords. We play single guitar lines, reminiscent of a Thin Lizzy kind of dual harmony thing. And
right.
And the end is, Until We Meet Again goes on and on and on and on at the end. Kind of like, I don't know. I wanted to do something maybe like a reference to, not that it sounds like the Beatles, but like in Hey Jude, at the end it goes on, and I wanted something that just, a refrain that kept on repeating.
Right.
So musically and lyrically, that song was for Mark, and that, that's the most, I don't know, that's a song that means the most to me.
Well, you guys have so much great stuff moving forward. This album is fantastic. But let's look in the rear view a little bit here. You toured, I could be getting Alzheimer's at this point. I'm an old man, but if memory serves, you toured on the amazing Privilege of Power album, and then 21 years ago, you recorded your first studio effort with the band Nightbreaker. Can you take us back and tell us some of your memories from that first big tour and making that record?
Well, yeah, I could tie that in with one of the songs on the new record. Donnie wrote a song called Land of the Rising Sun. Mm-hmm. My first tour was actually 1989 in Japan, which we were supporting the Thundersteel record. So he brought me into the band. Mark brought me in because Japan he knew that would be a big gig. Japan is a country that pretty much made Riot. They sold a lot of records there, but never went there. So when they decided to do Thundersteel, there was still just Mark was the only guitar player, and then they started recording Privilege. While they were recording Privilege, they got the offer to go to Japan. So that's why he got me in the band. So I got the call in November and had a little audition, and within 4 weeks I was playing in Japan, which was completely nuts and crazy. Donnie wrote the song because we knew we were a little popular in Japan, but we landed in Narita Airport, and there were hundreds and hundreds of people with banners in the airport on different levels. We could see out the airplane window, we got to the hotel lobby, and we couldn't even walk into the hotel. There was 300-400 people. We needed security, and we had to get fake names, and it was complete. We felt like the Beatles, and that's all Mark. Mark, is the biggest Beatle fan on earth. All he kept on saying is, "You've only felt what it's like to be a Beatle." And so we wrote the song on, "Land of the Rising Sun" is about our trip to Japan and about the Japanese people. So that's actually my first encounter. We got there. We had 3 shows. We did a TV show, a primetime TV show. We did a couple of radio shows, and it was just completely nuts. So a great experience I'll never forget.
So is there a song from that first album you recorded, Nightbreaker, that on the new album that you think is sort of reminiscent of that Nightbreaker record?
Wow, that's a good question.
Because that was your first with the band. So.
I did have one just like my first song I wrote was a song called Destiny. It was the second song on Nightbreaker.
Right.
Mark was cordial enough to, he always let everybody shine and let everybody do solos, and right away, he let me start writing music on the first record, and put my song as number 2 on that record, which I couldn't believe it. So he was so gracious. Yeah, I don't know any specific song that relates to that particular album, but that was my first record, and it'll probably one of the most important things that ever happened in my life. To be on a Riot studio record, unbelievable. Right. Being a fan for so many years before I was in the band.
Absolutely. Well, you were saying just a couple of minutes ago that you and Mark used to listen to all these old Gary Moore albums and all the stuff he was involved with. So give us like 3 of your all-time favorite Gary Moore riffs.
End of the World. There was a solo that he did. It's a riff that I've caught. I wish I had a guitar in my hand. I could show you what riff it is. He does a riff in his solo of End of the World that I probably did that riff on every album at some point. Just I changed it, for different keys. Yeah, it's one of the riffs that I stole from Gary Moore. Let's say I borrowed the riff and I used that. Still Got the Blues. It has to be the number 1 favorite of mine. Just his dynamics in that. No better Les Paul sound. And Parisian Walkways from Gary Moore. Yep. Those are songs that me and Mark listen to constantly. Nice. Over and over.
It's a funny thing, and people who aren't guitar players probably wouldn't get this, but when you've been playing guitar for a while, you pick it up. Almost inevitably, there's maybe 2 or 3 riffs that you've learned over the years that you just autopilot go to, and you play them without even thinking about them.
Oh, yeah, one of them is that Gary Moore riff that I was talking about. Exactly.
All right, so before we get out of here, the pointless question of the week. If you could have a theme song that played every time you walk into a room, sort of like those big-time sports players do, what would it be?
Unchained by Van Halen.
Nice. That is a fantastic choice. So,
yeah.
On a high note, before we get out of here, maybe a bit of a melancholy note, but can you share with us perhaps one of your favorite memories of Mark as we're walking out the door? Mark
was a guy who was sick. He had Crohn's disease, and he never wanted anybody to know it. If we had to cancel shows, he didn't want anybody to think it was because of his sickness or illness. He missed a few shows because of it. And to combat that, one thing, he loved to laugh, and he would have these hysterical fits of laughter where, like, everybody in the band, it would be like, we would just, here goes Mark again, here he goes, and it would last for about 5 or 6 minutes, and he would he would roll on the floor, he would be crying, he would laugh out loud like a little kid, and I got him to that point quite a bit, and I got him to laugh we were in Japan at a press conference, and we were very nervous. We were sitting at a table. It was like, 25, 30 reporters, lights, cameras going, and I just I said something to him. I forget what it was, and I got him to have a laughing fit in front of everybody, and I'll never forget that. Right on the panel that we were sitting at, and the band was just shaking their heads, say, "Oh, here he goes." And, he had snot's coming out of his nose, and he was crying, and that's a great memory I have of him.
Awesome. Mike Flyntz, Riot, or Riot 5 as we now call it, the new album, Unleash the Fire, out October 27th. We're so happy you guys are still continuing on the legacy. As we leave, what track should we play off the new album?
Let's play, let me see, what's a good one? Out of all 12 songs, Take Me Back.
Take Me Back from Unleash the Fire. Mike, thanks again so much, and we hope to see you on the road real soon.
Thank you very much. We'll see you soon.
Take care, brother.